Hey everyone, thank you very much for coming back on Sustain Leadership's this second seminar of this series. In today's this session, we are going to talk about remote work, teaming versus teamwork. Uh, Let me introduce quickly. First of all, myself is Muhammad Sohail. I'm a senior consultant with Sustain Leadership Consultancy, and me is our presenter of the today is Hanan bin Khaloob. She's executive director of Sustain Leadership. This is going to be approximately a 30 minutes webinar. A recorded version of the webinar will be available later in case someone is joining late or you will miss any part. You can watch it on our YouTube channel. During the session and later, once you are watching it on YouTube, do send your feedback, your questions, your thought in the comment section, in the chat section, so that we listen. What is your feedback? What situation you are feeling and facing? And according to that, if you will be having any question, we'll be glad. And Hanan is going to answer personally all of your questions. So thank you once again, everyone who is joining. Today's session, as I said, we are going to talk about remote work. Remote work has been around us since a long time. It's not something that's very new. But this global situation of COVID-19, it has forced all the organizations and people to experience this. For companies, moving from one entire office, now people are sitting in their homes, in their far-off locations, sometimes even on the different countries. So to manage these virtual teams, having these virtual offices, this is the matter like it's becoming, somehow it's a challenge, but in the same time, it's becoming a blessing for a lot of organizations to keep on running their work. So I would love to ask, first of all, Hanan, can you please define for us what is the team? And then we will talk about the teamwork and remote work.
Sure. Thank you, Sohail, for co-hosting this second webinar with me. Actually, as you rightly said, the same way that we are sitting here, right here at home, and running this webinar means there are millions of people that have deserted their offices, that have gone away from their regular work environments, but they still continued, business had to continue. And just that the concept of working together has slightly changed, or actually dramatically changed. So every time we think about a team, we think about a team as a group of people who share a common value and a common goal, and that come together to achieve that common outcome. That's right. The definition of a team. Actually, I've even pulled it out from the dictionary, and let me just share, because I put some slides up just to explain some concepts. So let me just share the screen. Okay, there. There we go. Okay, can you see it?
Yes, sounds good. We can see it.
Great, perfect. So team, when you look at a team is it's a noun, and you'll see why I'm focusing on that it is a noun. It's a number of persons associated together in work or any activity. So that's the definition in a dictionary. It's actually a group of people that are interdependent in achieving clearly defined and common shared outcome. And I underline clearly defined and common shared outcome. So that's what a team is in a nutshell. Not every group of people is a team, but every team is a group of people because it takes certain process, it takes certain behaviors, it takes certain skills to become a team.
Yeah. Right, that's great. And when you have defined the team, now we are talking about the virtual teams. Teams are sitting on the different places. Yes. And I'm sure that when we are having team under the same roof, behavior of people, this is different, like when they're interacting face-to-face every day with each other. What do you think what are the behaviors of high-performing teams in an ideal situation? And then we will relate it like with the remote teams.
Sure. Well, actually, I have summarized them here. The teams, they go, first of all, before they behave in a certain way, they go through a process before they become effective. And that's why being in the same place, which we are lacking now, being in the same space, working together in the same space, is what's being challenged, and that's what actually helps creating teams. They put a group of people, they don't necessarily constitute a team immediately. And I'm sure many of the listeners would relate to this concept of a process of building teams or building high-performing teams. First, you put people together, which is the step of forming. You form a team, but in the forming, just like this picture that I chose here, they don't know each other. Everybody is lacking trust, everybody's cautious, they don't know who they are dealing with. So they go into what we call the forming stage. Then they start storming, as this model suggests. Storming is when conflict starts, but conflict is good in this context because that means they have broken the ice to the point that they can ask each other questions, or if they feel that somebody's not open to them, they can conflict with them and say, well, I don't really agree with your opinion, or I have a different view of things. So that's what we call storming, which can be a little bit difficult, but that's what makes them go to the next step, which is norming. So we form, we storm, and then we norm. It means once we start conflicting together, then we get to a norm or an common understanding of how we work together, and only then the teams start performing. So once teams are performing or have formed together, have conflicted, have come to a certain norm, then they start performing better. But before that, they need to showcase certain behaviors. And those behaviors are really having a shared vision. No group of people can become a team unless they're working towards one common vision. They need mutual trust. Very, very important, mutual trust. You cannot open up to somebody if you don't trust them. You cannot conflict with somebody or give them a different opinion if you don't know that you can trust them. So trust is the foundation, and I think it has been talked about by many schools, by many models of team building. It's about the trust, that is the foundation. They need effective communication. Obviously, in any relationship that involves two people or more will require effective communication to succeed. So communication is needed, effective communication or any kind of communication, consensus. They need to come to a consensus when problems or conflicts arise, and a lot of coordination because they will be working on different projects. I mean, they work on the same project or different project, but they have different skills and they need to coordinate to make sure that they achieve that. So these are the main key behaviors that high-performing teams showcase as per studies, as per research, as per experience as well.
Right. And regardless, high-performing teams are sitting on a physical location or they are on the remote location.
Right. So some of these behaviors are needed to continue performing as a team. And whether you are remote or not remote, you still have that common goal to achieve. You still have that a shared outcome. You still have that goal, individual goals, team goals, and organizational goals. However, not being together in the same space could affect many of those behaviors. The communication, for example, and also the trust, because now that we work in remote teams, and with what happened, for example, with the COVID-19, many companies had to shift some of their employees from their departments. So a lot of people had to be moved to work in different functions, different departments, and that means different teams. So they're not used to these people. Because what we're suggesting here, when we talk about designing and building high-performing teams, we are suggesting that these people have spent time together, enough time together to build some kind of comfort, have got to know each other a little bit more. They build that rapport, they build that trust, and they are willing to perform together. They went through that form, storm, norm before they start performing. But here, in time of emergency and crisis, you might move people and suddenly you were used to working with different individuals, different team members, and suddenly you are imposed somebody else to work with. And you don't have the time and the luxury of time to go through that whole cycle. So that is one of many challenges that team members and also leaders are encountering in continuing to lead their performing teams in order not to dip the performance, not to dip the morale and the well-being of their teams.
So leaders are facing some challenges while they have to lead that remote teams. But do you think that there are some challenges even the teams are facing while they're working on the other places? Like a leader, I believe they can work better and when they understand the life and the world of their employees and their teams. So are there some reasons, there are some challenges which even teams are facing, and how leaders can address those challenges?
Sure. Yeah. Before that, I just wanted to say that it has become the new normal. Today, having remote team, but I mean by remote team, it doesn't mean just people working from home because of the COVID-19 crisis. It means that the definition of a remote team first is individuals who are working on common projects, on common goals, but who don't have the luxury to be sitting in the same place. And that could happen, and it's been there for ages. Since companies started branching out and we have started to work in global markets. So we have many teams that have the team members sitting in a different country, in a different continent completely, but they're still either as a leader who's managing teams who are actually myself, I was in that situation before where people reported to me were not in the same country. And I needed to make sure that I'm in constant contact. I mean, we used to travel, but you could not travel every week. And so we had to manage. And sometimes people would be hired that we have only recruited online. We haven't met physically because we needed the opening, somebody left, or a new opening came and we needed to hire a team member. So having remote teams is not just linked to the current situation or to major situations where people are restricted from being in the office. It's also a norm because now we live in this world that is continuously interdependent, global markets, but also there is what I call a VUCA world, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And this picture on the left really showcases how many team members and leaders feel these days. You're really walking on a very thin cord, and you can lose your balance anytime, and you don't know where you're heading, and even the question mark is very, very complex. So team members losing that comfort of connecting face-to-face, of knowing the people so they can trust them, losing the lunches, the morning coffees, the team building, the engagement, the fun activities, the extra work activities. So all of that is definitely taking a toll on how do we maintain the dynamic? Because at the end of the day, many organizations spend and invest so much funds into building their teams. That's why we see all these team building activities and team coaching. And now, how do we manage to keep the dynamic that we invest so much in creating while we have people that cannot see each other? That's a huge challenge for everyone.
Yes, certainly that is. We cannot ignore that thing. So tell us, walk us through, please, about the teaming and teamwork and behaviors of the teaming. What exactly is that? Because people love to listen this.
Absolutely. Actually, that was the whole point of this webinar, is to really talk about this new paradigm of looking at how to manage team and looking at what teamwork. So we said earlier that team was a noun, and it's about having a group selected. A number of selected group of people who are working together, who had the time to spend with each other, to build that trust, to build that rapport, to build that comfort, to work with each other. But just the slides are going through the benefits of remote work. Before I go to teaming, just want to walk everyone through this. It's not just because of the crisis, as I said, and this summarizes it for anybody who wants to look at the slide. It allows you to access talent. It allows you, to increase productivity when you have different people working from different places, access different markets, and expand more. So benefits for everyone, for businesses and for workers. I was saying earlier that expansion of companies to global markets has imposed to somehow have to lead remote teams, but also there's a new, what the VUCA world is also imposing or creating is the gig economy. And the gig economy is this on-demand project-based work where a lot of professionals prefer to not have a full-time job and prefer to work on project basis. And also businesses prefer sometimes to not have to incur the cost of a full-time professional, but rather use their services for a certain specific project. So the gig economy is also imposing this remote work as a norm, because many companies will access talent across boundaries, access talent that is not really working full-time, will never be in their office, however, will have to coordinate with some of their team members for probably a few weeks, few months, or a couple of years at the maximum. So there are a lot of benefits, cost-cutting, increased productivity, morale boosting actually for businesses, because if individuals can work from home or can work from anywhere, definitely when they don't have that rigid schedule and that rigid space where they have to be, it helps them feel balanced. And for the workers, the same thing, they feel, you cut the time of commuting, the traffic, and you save as well on commuting, probably on the spending on the lunches if you are having them home with family, and actually the ultimate ambition or aspiration for all of us is that life balance that we need to achieve. Now, having said that, and I'll come back to the challenges. The challenges of having remote works is, like I said, if you are having somebody who's a gig worker, having to collaborate with a team that's been working together for years. And so there might be some kind of, because they're not together, not sitting on the same table, misunderstandings will come about the tasks at hand and the expected outcome. The coordination could be also challenging because, again, of the not the ability to be working together to solve all the issues, and obviously communication. Communication is always always the biggest challenge, especially when you're not seeing face to face. And we understand as I go through communication, we all know, and this is the Mahrabian Pi, a formula based on a research, and I'm sure many of your listeners have come across this at least once. The accuracy of a message that is communicated comes to 55% of what is visual. I call these the 3 V's. The first one is visual, which is the body language. That's 55% of the accuracy of the message being communicated. So now, when we are working from home, when we are working with remote teams that we can't see, when we are holding and conducting remote meetings and virtual meetings, that 55% is very challenging, because you can't have eye contact. You can't see the body language that tells you a lot about if somebody's convinced about what you're saying, if somebody's unhappy, if somebody's disengaged. So that is putting a huge challenge on how do we communicate as we are remote. And that's something that I'll go through some tips, how we can manage effectively communication, even if we losing the insights that body language communicates to us.
I would love to listen, and this was exactly in my mind question to ask you next, how to keep this spirit of teamwork, and how to while your teams are, as we're continuously talking, that teams are remote. So how to build this teamwork while managing teams remotely?
Well, it's keep in mind that if you cannot see the body language, then you have to be verbal about it. So when you are conducting remote meetings, you might want to ask individuals to check in. So do that pulse check-in, ask them how they're feeling, make sure that you have around for everyone to be open about that, to know that you care, because you would have seen that probably on their face, you would have seen that or felt that in the tone of their voice. Okay, of course, you can see them in the camera, you can hear them speak, but it's never the same as when you are looking at somebody, when you are sharing coffee together, when you are hanging out next to the water cooler and all of that. So you might want to inject few habits that will help you at least overcome some of these challenges of keeping that team dynamic. So making sure you check in with everyone, making sure that you notice when they're communicating. People communicate through emails and messages. Make sure that you notice if their tone has changed. And what I mean by tone is if they usually write shorter emails and now they're writing longer ones, if they usually write long emails and suddenly are writing shorter ones, if they're not responding immediately and they're known to be responding immediately. So it's really about being very attentive to the changing behaviors. Also, use emoticons for emotions. The messages, now that people can't really see you smile when you are mainly exchanging emails, or messages or WhatsApp groups. Try to use smileys or emoticons to really showcase some emotions. Or because sometimes when you write a message and it doesn't have a tone, it could really be misunderstood. So if you are sending a joke, make sure that you are adding an emoticon that shows that. If it's something serious, then try to add that. If you just want to celebrate something, because we need to remember as well that it shouldn't be just about work. So if you want to keep the dynamic, if you used to celebrate birthdays and somebody's birthday is coming in these isolation times, then celebrate it. Have some time of like a virtual water cooler. Have people hang out, create a space where people hang out just to talk about life. Doesn't have to be, let's get into a meeting, have a meeting agenda, finish it, and then leave. You might want to keep somehow some kind of engagement. I know some companies that I work with that meet every Thursday and they do movie nights and they play games together, just like they would do. If they used to do breakfast and they meet for breakfast and everybody's showing through the camera what they're eating, or they cook together and everybody in their kitchen, if they used to bring food from home, for example. So there are many ways that you can adapt but continue that team dynamic. Somehow, of course, it's never the same. But again, these are tough times. We have to adapt as much as we can, as long as people feel that you care, whether you are a colleague or a leader or just a peer. People need to feel that you care no matter what, and that you're doing your best with the tools and resources that you have to show them that care, to show them that they're still valued, and that this physical distance is not really impacting that bond that you have. And that should be the focus. Now, going back to your question about teaming.
Yes.
Yeah. So I took a quote from the writer of the book that really has brought my attention to this concept about a couple of years ago, I think 4 years ago. And I thought it was far-fetched, to be honest. And now I'm paying so much attention to it. I started introducing the concept of teaming to companies I work with. But now what we are going through is really proving that this is a concept that's needed. Because I remember when I would suggest to some clients remote work for some of their functions, to help certain people, let's say mothers or some fathers that need to share the responsibility of taking care of the kids. And we were trying to introduce strategies where work is managed in a way that, or resources, human resources and talent is managed in a way that some employees could at least a couple of days or few days work from home. And not many companies were really open to that because they thought they would lose control. They thought that people won't be really taking it seriously. Now we see now that they are forced to do it because of what's happening, because of the crisis. I see a lot of companies that wish they did it before. And many companies, even giants like Google, I read the other day, they have announced that they're likely to continue the remote work even after the crisis is completely solved. So teaming, and the quote from Amy Edmondson, which she's a professor in Harvard Business School, managers need to stop thinking of teams as static groups of individuals who have ample time to practice interacting successfully and efficiently. I just read her quote, and I think it says it all. It's really today, and the picture that I put there is very relevant, because once we think about a team, we tend to think about this this successful sport team or an orchestra, and successful sport team or clubs, people who belong to the same club, who have time to practice or rehearse together, who spend time really exercising together and practicing together before they go and achieve their goal. Now, if we think about teaming, we're looking at this picture. It's just random people that still want to play a good game, but they were formed in fraction of time. They didn't have the time to practice or rehearse, and they stopped playing the game. So that's just the analogy. So teaming is really a verb. That's the picture of the book, Teaming, How Organizations Learn, Innovate, and Compete in the Knowledge Economy. Because as we are moving to the knowledge economy, this is the kind of paradigm shift that we need to have about the way we look at how do we form teams and how do we manage teams. So that's why in the beginning I said team is a noun. So the difference between team versus teaming, team is a noun, is static, but teaming is a verb. It's dynamic. It has its action. It's not bounded to static entity. It's in the dictionary. It says it's to join together in a team. So what I mean by it's not bounded means you don't need to be working with the same team. You could be working on different projects, and now we see it in many companies that they keep moving. Not just because of the crisis. The crisis has showcased that a lot, has seen many organizations move their people from sales to technical, from technical to logistics. So they had to deal with the crisis, which means nobody could say, this is what I do, this is what I hired for, this is my role. It's really about what is the need now, what kind of teams we need to create to solve the issue, and what kind of resources we have, and we move them regardless of their specialty, expertise, or the role that they are used to. So teaming is more intentional, if you will. It's more intentional, it's more active, it's more dynamic. It's about the willingness to coordinate and collaborate. We're not saying that we're going to lose the coordination and collaboration. Communication, collaboration, coordination will remain key success factors for a performing team. However, in this concept of teaming, individuals who are successful at teaming will need to be ready to collaborate at any time, coordinate at any time, and with whoever they are put together, regardless if they know them or they don't know them, regardless if they feel comfortable at the beginning or not, or if they had enough time to go through that whole process. We don't have the luxury of time now to go through that whole process, to make people, engage people together, spend time until they know each other. We don't have that. This is the business landscape that we are operating in today, and it needs this kind of paradigm shift in the way we look at teaming. People need to team up rather than be part of a team.
Interesting. So whether it's temporary or it's going to be longer, we don't know how long this situation is going to remain. But certainly distance work or remote work, it's going to be around us for the longer time, or maybe for always. And I strongly believe that a lot of companies who now adapted this habit to work from the distance, managing teams remotely, not sure that if 100% would love to go back working in a physical location. A lot of people, a lot of companies will now give a second thought before going back to the situation. Maybe they will love continuing the way as it is going forward now.
Yes, I already hear that. Actually, I know someone who owns an online platform, e-commerce platform, and he was just telling me a couple of weeks ago that I don't think I'm going to renew the rent for the office because I just felt it's an extra cost. We've been managing just well, and his employees, he said, my employees have been interacting with customers, have been answering customers' needs, working from home. I just needed to give them the technology, the right technology and the tools. And now come to think, they're happier, they're with their homes. Come to think of it, why do I even have to keep paying rent for the office? And like he had a big office with so many people. So a lot of companies are coming to this realization that many functions can be run from home. So why incur the cost and force people to come? It's good for the environment as well. Imagine if we don't have everyone commuting every day.
Exactly.
So I think it's good for everyone, and the benefits are there, as challenging as it is. So I'm already hearing from decision makers, from business owners, that some of them will limit the people that go to office, or will have shifts so everybody gets to work from home at least 2 days. And as I say, there's even extreme of this this tech company that I work with that said, you know what, they don't think even they will renew their office rent when it's over. So
Right.
yeah, so it's here to stay for sure. It is definitely here to stay, regardless of the crisis, because as I said, now everybody has tasted
True.
working from home and working in a flexible way, and they found out that it's no big deal. They can, even leaders, they found out, the ones that were resisting to let their people work from home, now they've seen that they are performing. Actually, some people are working harder. I found myself working day and night more than when I'm in office. And so are
True.
so many people. So productivity hasn't been really impacted negatively. And that's the realization that many companies are making. And that's going to be the new norm for sure. I don't know at what level, but definitely we're not going back. That I'm 100% sure of. We're not going back to 100% teams working from office or companies running their operations from offices.
Exactly. Great. Thank you so much, Hanan. You gave us great insights for today. I believe that if someone is having any question, they can throw us. And in case someone will be watching a recorded version of this video, they can send questions in the comment section of video, and we'll be happy to answer. So is there any final piece of thought or advice you want to give? Or
Yeah, sure. Just going back to teaming, to really compare, teaming is really, as the same person who wrote the book said, and I love this line of hers. It's teamwork on the fly. It's really creating that coordination, collaboration. Without having that luxury of stable membership, you're not part of a club. You're not yellow team. You're not Eagles. You know what I mean? How we get so attached to, this is my team. We are the Eagles. We are the whatever we're the blue. We are the yellow team. We're the green team. No, this is about being really focused on achieving results and being willing to move and be shifted without having to have that attachment, without having to have that specific entity. And for that, there are specific skills that are needed, because you're not going to be knowing people. Not going to spend time with people and you don't know them, and somebody might be working from another continent and you're assigned to work with him or her, and they're in a different time zone, they're in different culture, you don't know them. So you don't have time to build that trust, and you need to start working and performing. So we need to be courageous. So the 3 skills or 4 skills are actually all start with C. We need to be curious, because if you don't know people, if you don't have time to break the ice, then you have to start asking questions and know what kind of questions to ask, to know other people, to know their expertise, to know where they come from, to know a little bit more about them. Rather than letting things flow with time, now you have to be more proactive. So be curious about others. Be courageous, because you'll have to take risk. You don't have time to build the trust. You will have to be able to take some kind of risk to work with people you don't know. And
right.
So you need to have confidence. You need to have confidence in what you know. You need to have confidence to share knowledge, because this is all about sharing knowledge. You have to have confidence also, because working in this time of teaming means it's not like you are the strategy guy and all you do is going to be strategy. You might be moved to another function as per the need of the project or the need of the company, which means you have to constantly be updating yourself and learning from others and sharing learning, so that that learning has to be distributed in the company, which means that takes us to what the leadership needs to do. The leadership, to encourage teaming, the leadership has to also create psychological safety. So people can embrace failure. They can embrace conflict. They won't have problem to take risks if they know that if they fail, it's somehow accepted. They'll be willing to take risk as well. And everybody, and that's again the role of the leadership, they need to make sure everyone is focused on the purpose. Because if everyone is aligned to the purpose, to that bigger picture, and they know what it is and they know why they're doing what they're doing, they wouldn't mind. They won't be attached to a certain team or a certain project or a certain job, as long as they know that this move or this shift is still linked to that very purpose that everyone is working towards.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Hanan, for your
You're
contribution.
welcome.
Once again, I would love to say thank you everyone who joined this live session, but at the same time who are watching recorded version. We appreciate your time. We'll be happy to get your questions and love to see you in next week's webinar. Thank you so much, Hanan.
Thank you,
Have a good day.
everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.